Hello and welcome to episode 188 of the Podiatry Business Podcast. Today's podcast is called the Front Desk Script for Price Shoppers. So does it ever happen to you, I'm sure it does, in your podiatry clinic when the phone rings and you pick it up or your receptionist picks it up and the question is, hello, can I ask how much is it for a podiatry consult? Now this sounds like it's a price question, but really what it is, it's a confidence question. Because the patient doesn't know what else to ask. They're not sure if you can help them, they're not sure what the process is, they're not sure if it's worth even coming to your clinic. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you a script that you can use to turn price shoppers into booked patients without having to be salesy, without having to be pushy, and I'm going to show you how to train your team on it so that they can deploy it inside in your clinic. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that this happens twice a day in your clinic with, say, a regular 30-minute podiatry chiropody appointment. So that's 10 appointments, 50 weeks of the year, that's 500 appointments. Now, if you charge 60 quid for one of those appointments, that ends up being a significant amount of money. If you add in on top of that more complex conditions like maybe nail surgery, maybe orthotics and so on, you can see that how you answer this and if your team makes a mess of it can cost you significantly. Now, here in More Practice Profits, I help my podiatry clients, owners, to improve their business. So if you're finding that your podiatry clinic is not providing you with the lifestyle, with the financial freedom that you want, maybe you're feeling that it's a lot of effort and it's not giving you the outcome that you want, well then I would be delighted to have a conversation and see where we can help you with your business. If this is something you're interested in, if you're interested to rebuilding your business to one that gives you a better quality life and financial freedom, then simply go to morepracticeprofits.com. Book a triage call. It's a 5 to 10 minute phone call with either me or one of my team where we'll have a quick conversation to see what it is that's giving you trouble. And then from that, we'll suggest next steps if we think we can help. If we don't think we can help, we don't think we're the right fit for you, we'll be very straight with you and we'll point you in the right direction. Okay, let's get back to the podcast. So the real reason that people ask this question is they're just unsure of what they're supposed to say. They're unsure if you can even help them. They're unsure what the process is. What should they say? How do they say it? They can often be intimidated coming to a medical clinic, and maybe they're not even sure if it's worth coming to see you. Now, what you don't want to do is you don't want your team to defend the price. That's not the job. That's not what you're trying to do. Instead, what you want to do is you want to lead the conversation away from one where it's all about price to one where you're providing clarity and you're showing that this is the right place for you to come and we can help you. If you don't do that, if you allow the price to dominate the conversation, then what it does is it turns you and your business into a commodity. One where people will simply choose you on price and they will always choose who is the cheapest. So it's important that we don't do that because that's a very dangerous way to run your business if it's just basically based on who can be the cheapest, because the margins can be super tight and it makes running that business really, really difficult for clinic owners to do. Instead, what we want to do is we want to understand that when people are making decisions on whether they're coming to see you, they're not doing them based on rational thinking, even though we'd like to think that that's what they're doing. We know that people don't make rational decisions. That's just what humans are, especially when it comes to complex issues, especially when it comes to medical issues. Instead, what we do is we base these decisions as humans on emotion. So we will use an emotional decision-making tree on how we do that. We have our left brain or right brain, depending on the person. It might be back to front, but one is for rational thinking and the other is for emotional thinking. And when we have a complex decision to make, what we tend to do is we tend to default from the rational to the emotional buying decision. We use our emotional side of the brain to do so when it's a difficult or complex decision to make, and picking a clinic to help with your healthcare is a complex, it is a hard decision. So we've got to understand that that's what's happening, and we've got to find out what that emotional goal is of the patient, and we've got to use that to wrap around our treatment that we're going to recommend as the perfect solution. So imagine that the patient rings, and instead of them saying how much is for an appointment and your team just giving the price and they hang up, we're going to have a script that we're going to use. So what we want to do is when they ask that appointment, we want to start with this question back, or a version of it. And typically what I say to my team is, patient asks how much is for appointment, and you said, do you mind if I ask you a few quick questions, because I want to make sure that I recommend the right type of appointment. Patient says yes, of course they do. They're not going to want to book the wrong appointment. Now at this point you've been given permission, and what you want to do is you want to train your team to ask between 3 and 5 questions. Now they should obviously triage the patient during those questions, but you want to move them away from pricing or even time on the appointment, because again that's a kind of a commodity, to finding out what their emotional goal is. So example would be, have you ever been to see a podiatrist before? What is that's giving you problem? How long is it giving you problems? What effect is it having? What's it stopping you doing? Now that's super important, that question, because the answer to that is their emotional goal. For example, it's stopping me going for a walk with my husband. It's stopping me taking my grandkids out for a stroll. It's stopping me running a 5K. That is the real reason that they're going to choose to come and see you, even though that is something that is all subconscious and the patient isn't aware of it. So we've got to find that out. Now once you've asked those 3 to 5 questions that are not about price, not about commodity, what we then do is we want to then come back with our next solution, our script solution. And that will be something aligned of, okay, this is something we see quite a lot in this clinic. Your next step really be what we would recommend is that we bring you in for a X appointment. In this appointment, the podiatry team will do, and you mention 2 to 3 features. So gait assessment, whatever it happens to be. And this will provide XYZ benefits. You have to have benefits to couple with the features. And the reason for this is because the research tells us when you connect a feature with a benefit, you get emotional results. When you just have a feature, when we bring you in and do a gait assessment, we don't have that benefit, we don't get that emotional trigger, and therefore it's not going to get the patient to agree more readily. So let me go through that again. Okay, so what I'd recommend is this type of appointment. In this appointment, the podiatry team will do ABC feature, and this will allow us to have, or allow you to have XYZ benefit, and make sure that we can get you back doing walking your 5K, going for a walk with your husband, whatever the emotional goal is. How does that sound? Now I like to make sure that my team says, how does that sound at the end? Because I don't want to ask a yes or no question. Do you want to book an appointment? Because I could get a no. So I want to ask something that's a bit softer, and it's more, here is the problem, you've told me what your problem is, here is the solution, and it's obvious that we should go ahead. And how does that sound? It kind of does that for me. Patient will say something positive at that point. Now they may ask you the price, and I come to that in a moment, but if they don't, if they say that sounds okay, which is typically what they do, then you move on to booking them in, and you say, okay, well, you're going to assume that they're coming in. When were you hoping to come in, or when are you available to come in? And you're booking them into that appointment. They typically will ask you the price at this point, or maybe just before you book the appointment. And again, you have to have a nice simple script where you're not defending the price. And the script I use is, pricing is pretty simple. It is X pounds for Y appointment. How does that sound? That sounds okay? Okay, let's go ahead and book that appointment in. Now, once you've got that script on, what you need to make sure you're doing is you get buy-in from your staff. So you've got to get your staff to understand why you're doing this. And you're doing it from a viewpoint of you're trying to make sure the patient gets the right appointment, make the front desk job easier, to make sure that the patient is coming to your clinic because you're the best clinic to treat these people. Then you're going to develop your personal script for your clinic, and that should not be done on your own. You should do that in conjunction with your front desk. Sit down, go through this, explain to them what it is you're looking to do, and you write your script based off what we've just done here. Try not to change it too much, but based off what you've done here. Then you're going to role play it. Role play basically is one of you acts as the patient and one of you acts as the receptionist, and you swap and you just repeat until you iron out all of the kinks on that. Once you're all happy with that, then you need to make sure that that script is easily found and easy to follow, easy typed, for whenever it's needed. Now, when I get a new receptionist in my team, what I do is I print out that script. It's an easy, legible format to follow, and I sellotape it to the reception desk right beside the phone so they cannot make a mess of it. Then I want to measure, I want to see what is the result. So you're going to listen in to the conversations. That's the only way you're going to do this. So you can either use call recording, or maybe you can do what I do in my clinic. I have my reception, my office rather, right next to the reception with the door open, and I can hear the conversations. And then I make sure that I give feedback instantly when I hear something that isn't where I want it to be. Then you repeat the process over and over and over again. Now, scripts like this can improve performance in all areas of your clinic. Then they can be an absolute game changer. They can help that staff member who's struggling to get a patient to be compliant with a treatment plan, or a receptionist who's struggling to get a patient to rebook, to improve their performance. Now, you and your team are already using scripts. We all tend to say the same thing over and over again in our treatments and in our conversations with patients, but typically what will happen is every single member staff has an entirely different script, and none of it is managed by the owner of the business. So you will find that some team members, their script is really effective, and then you'll have other team members, their script is just not effective and their rebooking rates are poor, and so on. So what you need to do as the owner of the business is to figure out which scripts are best for your business, and then apply them in this process we've done here across the business, one at a time. Best areas to start are absolutely incoming phone calls, absolutely rebooking patients as they walk from leave the clinician that you're rebooking. Nice simple ones to fix. And then I would move on to what do you actually say inside as a podiatrist with the patient to get the patient to accept your treatment plan, to be compliant. That's the one that's a little bit more technical, a bit harder, but that's the sort of stuff that we teach and give scripts that our clients can simply deploy in more practice profits. Like I said earlier, if you want us to help you in your business to improve the profitability of your business, reduce your workflow or your work amount, clinical hours, while still achieving financial freedom, this is what we do here at More Practice Profits. We would be delighted to have a conversation with you. Just go to morepracticeprofits.com. Fill in a form for a quick triage call, and let's just have a 5 or 10 minute phone call, and we'll see where we go from there. So until next time, this is Lorcan from the Podiatry Business Podcast, signing out.